All right. So with my template, you could see, and I'll use this side because I think you could see better, it doesn't match up 100%. That's okay. We're using this more as a guide. If I want to, I could go in and I could work it from the inside and actually push it out. So if you're having, some trouble, you can shape the clay even after you coil it. So you could go in and you could really kind of turn it and push out. But you want to make sure that you're working with the whole entire thing so that it's all even. So then I'll go in and it's a little bit closer. All right, I think I'm gonna go with that. So I'm gonna roll out a few coils. Remember, you wanna go from your fingertips all the way to your palms. You don't wanna roll them out like on your board. You wanna have a pretty good table space. Clay, you could, clean it up. It's not toxic or anything. So you just wanna make sure you really compress it between your hands. And if anyone's having trouble with coiling, just let me know. I know, sometimes the first coiling project is a little bit difficult because it's a new skill. And some people wind up loving coil pots, and some people are like, nope, I just want to sculpt. I just want to make pottery. But we're gonna learn a little bit of everything. So I pretty much already have a coil. I just want to thin it out. Like I said, I'm just gonna kind of use this part of my hand. You do want to use from your fingertips to your palms, but just because I have a little minor injury there. And if you get a thicker spot, just go in and work that. I'm not pushing down really hard on the clay. I'm applying a little bit more pressure to the areas that have a thicker amount, but I'm not applying a lot. It's probably gonna be good for, almost 2 coils. So I'm gonna actually break it in half. Now, this is where this really starts to come into play. And the other thing I'm gonna do in this video is really start to smooth some of this up, because it's gonna dry out a little bit quicker than the fresh clay that you're applying. So we wanna make sure we go in and we smooth all that out really nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna line up my template. And like I said, it's not perfect through there. But I wanna go in now. So that's the main thing I really want you guys to notice, is I want to bring this in. So I'm gonna need my coil to go inward. So when I go ahead and rest this on, I'm gonna kind of pinch it so that it is going inward. I'm gonna pinch it using an inward direction. If you're going out with a coil pot, you're gonna wanna rest it ever so slightly on the outside. But because this shape is now going in, I want to have it on the inside. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut about that much off, because now I wanna go in and I wanna line it up. So I know that I need to move this in a little bit. And I'm just gonna kinda not pinch it in, I'm just gonna kinda turn it down a little bit so that it starts to meet. Because if I pinch it in, what's gonna happen is it's gonna kinda collapse in on itself. It's not gonna hold. So I'm actually kind of pinching this coil part in, but leaving it attached to the other one just slightly inward. And coil pots aren't always or usually made using a template. So if yours doesn't match up exactly, that's fine. Usually like when you're first starting out, a lot of people recommend using a template. If you go off of yours, that's okay. But I think it's just good to have, you know, some type of guide that you're working with. So I know that I had to go in for this shape. You could see from the top that it's going inward. Hopefully you could also see from the side. Now, some of the coils you're not gonna see. If you're not gonna see the inside coils, now your first little bit I want you to smooth because that's your base. But if you're not gonna see some of these inside coils, you don't have to smooth them in if it's really hard to get in there and smooth them all up, depending on really what clay you're working with as well. So I know that my vase is gonna go up like that, so I'm really only gonna probably see the top 3 coils, and I'm gonna make sure those are smoothed really well. So you wanna use your thumb, and because we're working on going inward, make sure that this is really nice and stable and you're almost like smoothing over. So we want it going in. I wish I had my better webcam hooked up to this. I have to get like a new little piece. But just smoothing, and I'm really allowing, you know, as I'm like kind of rounding this off, I'm really keeping my hand inside steady so that it's not gonna collapse in on me. Kind of pinch it out, even it up a little bit. At this point, if you feel like your base isn't really staying all that well for you, if it's a little wibbly wobbly, you could take it and just tap it down a little bit more, keep it nice and solid. Now, the next part, and based on some of the sketches, you know, that I had, the next part for a lot of you is going up a little bit. If you're continuing to go in, you would do the same exact thing, and then I'm gonna show you guys how to flare it out as well. But first I wanna go in and I wanna do something really, really important, and that is smoothing, because it's a little lumpy. Now that it's slightly drier, you can go in and you could really use your rib tool to work this and smooth it. And especially if it's a little drier in the area, it's a lot easier to smooth with the rib tool, but I want to get all of this extra off. You could see it's a lot smoother now on that side than it is over here. Now you could use your rib tool in any direction. You could have it go up, you could go side to side, whatever's easier for you. You could also go in and just use your hand. That would be fine as well. You could go with the rib tool and then smooth it. I think that works the best. I usually go in with a rib, then smooth it up real quick with my thumb, and then you'll have like this really nice smooth finish, as opposed to that. Remember, if you have any like large holes on it, I'm gonna pretend that, you know, say I have a little like crater there. Just take a little extra clay. Make sure you really compress it on, tap it in place, and just smooth it over. Another thing I find that people have some difficulty with as they're coiling is you'll start to get a gap in between your coils as you're going in. Now you could do two things. You can kind of go in with your thumb and pinch that around to try to make it a nice smooth transition. If you're really seeing a big line where your coils meet and you don't have enough clay to smooth it in just with the coil, same thing. So pretend you have something that looks like that, kind of, sort of. Hold on, let me smooth it up because probably won't be able to look at that. Say you have something that looks like that and it looks like a little, chunky, you kind of see like that coil area. What I want you guys to do is go in, same exact thing, and you could even coil like a little small piece up. Just little pieces at a time. You don't want to attach like a big hunk of clay on. And just make sure it's compressed so there's no air pockets, and just smooth it in. So if you run into any problems where your coils have a clear separation between them, just fill it in. That just means that the clay you're working with, either maybe the coils were too small or that the clay was starting to get a little dry. So we want to smooth these. Any of these little marks, any of your original pinch pot marks, really go in, work your rib tools in, and smooth these up. Try to, really take advantage of how they bend, and you could really bend them with the pot. Now you are gonna get some clay coming off. I would try to take it off as you go so that it doesn't start sticking to another area of the pot. But rib tools are your friends when it comes to smoothing. The blue one works pretty well, and this metal one works really well. I personally like the metal one. Out of like all my ribs that I have, this one's my favorite, and it's always funny because it's like just like the, at least like it's just, we're super inexpensive, and like people always have fancy rib tools, and I've tried some, but I just really like just this basic metal rib tool. I don't know, I just find like it does exactly what I want it to. You could see hopefully that it's shinier on the one area, and then just really working it in. So it's a process to get a nice smooth pot. But I want you guys to really focus in on smoothing, your in progress before we get to the very end next week. And now I'm just gonna work my thumb through, and you could see it's getting glossier. See how that part's all nyeh, nyeh, nyeh. Just smooth it. So the rib tool helped me get extra clay off, and then I'm going in with my hand and I'm actually smoothing it. We don't want any little crumblies on there or anything like that. We want a nice smooth pot. All right, I am gonna do one more coil, and then I'm gonna have you guys have a studio day. But I really wanna make sure that we finish these not by next Tuesday, the Tuesday after, so that Mr. Sickles can jump in and start his lesson fresh on that Wednesday, which is a remote day, but that's a good day for a lesson intro. I feel myself anyway. But I'll introduce you guys next week. Okay. One more coil. And like I said, if you're going off your template a little bit, that's okay. You know, you could see that mine doesn't match up perfectly. That's okay. But I know that I want to go inward again. So I'm going to ever so slightly rest this towards the inside, and I'm going to pinch it, and I'm going to kind of start closing it up. And the reason I really want to pinch my coils in is because we're not using slip. That's just going to help with the attachment a little bit more. And I always try to cut my ends where I'm gonna need them to be pretty even. So you guys can hopefully see how that's like starting to just curve in by me naturally resting it a little bit on the inside of the coil, but also really like working it with my hand. So don't feel, you know, like, oh, my coil's not in the right. You could, you know, kind of pinch it into the right spot. And these are just little guys, so it'll be easy to smooth these up when we're finished. Attach that together. Make sure this is nice and smooth and even before you go in and smooth it. And I'm just really pinching it inward to reiterate that I want this coil to go in. Quick question, is anyone in the spot on their project where you want your coils to go out? Because I was going to go over that on Monday, but if anyone's ready, I'll go over it now. So I would recommend mostly like using your thumb. Make sure that you're really stabilizing. My thumb has a little injury. You could also replace it with this if you feel like you need to. And that'll kind of smooth it down. Make sure you're supporting it from the inside. This creates a little bit more of a mess, but you can go in then with the tool and kind of clean it up and go in with your hand. But if you can't smooth the coils over with just your hand, this will help you. And take your time. We're in no rush. Well, a little bit of a rush, but not a real rush. There's some deadlines. I'm gonna go in now so you could see my, my pot's really starting to go in. I'm just gonna go in now and kind of like pinch it a little bit, just get it nice and clean. And I'm gonna start smoothing this coil because I think I only have like 2 or 3 more to go. I might change my shape a little bit. We'll see. But I'm also really excited to show you guys the burnishing technique for next week. It's actually legitimately just using like one of those little like glass stones. Sometimes people use like river rocks to polish, but it makes it so shiny. if you have like any little uneven areas like that, just pop a little piece of clay. Alright, so this is kind of where I'm at now. I'm still going to go in and smooth it. I'm going to go in next week and I'm going to build it up a little bit more and I'm going to flare it out. So I'll go over that in the next Monday and, you know, in the next video that I'm making for this little pot.